Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this, my first Hearthstone video. And why am I making a Hearthstone video, I hear you cry? Well, I'm very fortunate to be invited into... it's called the Hearthstone Open, but it's not really open to absolutely everyone. What it is it's a knockout tournament open to all students in the United Kingdom. And many people have applied, and fortunately I got accepted into the tournament, and so I'm going to be making some videos. If I accidentally kind of do quite well, then I'll be making videos on my matches. If I do badly, then I will just make some videos on the decks that I'll be using. So the format of the tournament is it's a best of 5, where each player secretly picks 3 decks before the match, and then they play the first deck against each other, and whoever wins that first match must keep playing the same deck again and again and again until they lose. The match is over when one person has lost all 3 of their decks. Without further ado, also I think between rounds each the decks have to remain the same. There's no limit on any specific cards or anything. I think those are all the rules, and it's a knockout tournament, so if I lose the first match, which should be coming up shortly after this video, then there'll be lots of videos of me doing badly on the ladder with these 3 decks. So without further ado, let's get on and meet my 3 decks. So I will be playing the Warlock, the Shaman, and the Mage in this tournament. Let's take a look at the Mage first. It's probably the simplest deck to understand. Okay, so it's a fairly standard Mage deck. It's got plenty of spells in it, and it's got plenty of value minions. I think this is probably the best value deck that I have. It's probably the most reliable as well. So it starts out with a pair of Arcane Missiles, a pair of Mana Worms, a pair of Frostbolts, and Arcane Intellect. Now the thought behind taking quite a few spells for the Mage, bearing in mind that also later on I'm taking a pair of Fireballs, I'm also taking a pair of Polymorphs, a pair of Water Elementals, and a pair of Flame Strikes, so a lot of cards from the Mage deck going into this. And the reason why I'm playing this is that there are a lot of minions that can synergize well with my deck, and especially with all the spells that I'm putting into it. So for a start, the Mana Worm, I can play, if I get fortunate, I can, if I go second and I pull both Mana Worm and Arcane Missiles, I can play the Mana Worm, coin into Arcane Missiles. That gives the Mana Worm +2 attack, because the coin counts as a spell. That makes it a 3/3 Mana Worm, because it gains +1 attack every time I cast a spell. So that gives me the possibility of a 3/3 on turn 1, although it's probably better to use the Arcane Missiles on another minion to try and kill either a 3-drop, a 1 mana 3/2, because I can get 1 hit from the Arcane Missiles and perhaps ping them with the hero power. Then the Mana Worm can just hit the hero. Frostbolt is good solid damage, and it also freezes big minions such as giants or legendaries. Arcane Intellect for a little bit of card draw, because actually there's not too much in this deck, and mages need card draw, because they tend to burn through spells pretty quickly. Fireball, obvious reason, 6 damage, 4 mana, it's well worth taking, it's a good solid card. Likewise with Polymorph, in my deck I don't have too much in the way of hard removal. I have a lot of AoE damage, but it's not guaranteed hard removal, and Polymorph just allows me to just insta-kill any big heroes, or just any hard-to-kill minions. It just gives me that option. Water Elemental, very good value card, almost as good as our Chillwind Yeti, I would say. It's right up there. It has the same amount of stat points for the same amount of mana, but I think the Chillwind Yeti is it's a better spread slightly. But nonetheless, Water Elemental is still a fantastic card, and then I have obviously a pair of Flame Strikes. Moving on to the common neutrals that I'm using. So the first one is the Acidic Swamp Ooze. Now the reason why I'm taking a 6 Swampus is specifically for fighting paladins and warriors, for getting rid of any big scary weapons that they might have in their hand. So like a True Silver Champion, maybe a Gorehowl, stuff like that, just to get rid of it quickly before it does any meaningful damage. I've taken a pair of Amani Berserkers. They're 2-3, so they trade well early on in the game. Also, with the mage ability, I can hit them for 1 damage and make them a 5-2 in 1 turn. So they can get some really good value trades out. Next in the deck, I have a pair of Sun Fury Protectors. Now again, these are it's another 2 mana drop card. Where is it? It's over here. Yeah, so it's 2 mana again, so I can get it out nice and early, and it's 2-3. That gives adjacent minions taunt, so it gives me the ability to get a lot of protection up on the board relatively cheaply, and worst case scenario, it can still be played on its own because it's still only 2 mana for a 2-3 and it trades reasonably nicely. Next in the deck is a pair of Harvest Golems for just pure value. It's a fantastic value card. Also there's an Acolyte of Pain. Again, that can be used exceptionally well in the mage deck. I can ping it for 1 damage, draw a card, and then if they kill it, it draws another card. It's guaranteed 1 card draw. Usually I get 2 cards for it, so that's a really nice card to draw. Then moving on to Chillwind Yetis, taking a pair of them, again pure value card. Then moving all the way up to the 5 mana costs, a pair of Azure Drakes. It's only a 4-4, but it does give me extra spell damage and an extra card draw. Again, this whole deck is about value, and that's precisely what an Azure Drake brings. It means I can do 5 damage with Flame Strike. That means I can kill Yetis in 1 hit. Also, it means that I can Frostbolt 4/4s with ease. It's just a good card. Gadgets and Auctioneer for a spell-heavy deck. Whenever I cast a spell, draw a card, extra card draw. It's decent 4/4. It's 5 mana for a 4/4 is overpriced, but when you add in the fact that there's good card draw involved as well, it's probably worth it. Single Bold Fistoga, again, pure value, it's absolutely excellent. And then to finish off the deck, I have the lovely Lord Ragnaros. It's a fantastic legendary, in my opinion, probably the best legendary. It guarantees 8 damage, and it has the ability to turn a game round completely. So that's the mage deck sorted. The next deck that I said I'd be using would be a Shaman. Now this is where I'm probably going to get all the yelling and screaming because these are the decks that are a bit more risky. So this is quite a slow Shaman deck. It focuses on the 5 and above minions, and basically the rest of the deck is used in order to get me there. So let's see how I go with the hero powers. Taking 2 Earth Shocks. These can be useful both early and late game. They can help kill creatures that aren't quite dead, and also they can be used as silence. Later on in the game, again, silence is really, really useful. Get rid of any nasty legendaries, Tyrion Fordring, I think Edmund Van Cleef, all those kind of minions that rely fairly heavily on their ability to make them worthwhile. 2 Lightning Bolts. It's 3 damage for 1 mana. It's 3 damage for sort of 2, so it's pretty good. It's essentially it's like a 3/1, I suppose, ish, maybe. It's a good card though. 1 Overload is fine because I'm running. Am I actually run? No, I'm not actually running. Oh yeah, I'm running an Unbound this deck because I thought it'd be nice to have 1. 2 Stormforged Axe, really, really good early sword. 2/3 for 2 mana, really, really useful to get out. I can hit down minions fairly comfortably. Did I take a Wind Fury? I didn't take a Wind Fury, but then I did take a pair of Feral Spirits to give myself that all-important taunt, nice and reliable, and then a pair of Hexes, same thing as the Polymorph with the Mage deck. This is there to get rid of the really scary cards, and that's what it's going to be used as. Lightning Storm, this is the Shaman version of Flame Strike, I suppose, or Consecrate, but again, the Overload and the fact that it's so cheap means that later on in the game it's much more valuable than a Consecrate. A single Unbound Elemental just to help offset the cost of the Overload, and then 2 Fire Elementals because they are possibly some of the best minions in the game. And then Alakir the Windlord, because Alakir the Windlord is super cool. So again, moving on to the basic deck, went for a Loot Hoarder. That's the first card. It's nice, reliable card draw. You can get it out early. It trades really nicely for 3/2 drops. So a Knife Juggler, for example, Mad Bomber, Swamp Ooze, Raptor, all those kind of things trades really nicely for. I took a Novice Engineer as well, just in case I needed that immediate card draw. Personally, I like Loot Hoarder more because it's actually useful. It can kill stuff with 2 attack. But just in case I needed that instant card draw late on in the game that could like win a round, Novice Engineer is the thing for that. Again, Sunfury Protector, same reason with the Mage, gives reliable taunt up. It stops early game rushes, as with the Feral Spirits. There's a lot of early taunt in this deck, and the reason is to get me to the late game. That's why that's in there. So then the next card is the Earthen Ring Farseer, which I've taken 2 of because Shaman has very poor self-healing, and 3 mana for a 3/3, it's a decent minion. Added to the fact that it restores 3 health, it could be very, very useful, because again, Shamans have very little in the way of self-preservation. Harvest Golems, pure value, excellent card. The Unbound Elemental I've spoken about. The next card is Defender of Argus. This is essentially the same reason as the Sunfury Protector. The advantage of the Defender of Argus is that it means that I can kill minions, I can kill copies. So for example, a 4/4, if they have a 4/4 on the board and I have a 4/4 that I want to send out, I can chuck out a Defender of Argus to make it a 5/5, and then I win that trade because then they still have to do an extra damage to it. It has taunt, still 5 damage. It's more mana that they're using up. Gnomish Inventor, card draw, 2/4, it's an annoying card to get rid of. A pair of Azure Drakes again, extra card draw because Shamans sort of need it, and dispel damage to increase the power of all these Overload stuff. I'm expecting a lot of legendaries. I personally don't have that many, relatively, or at least I don't think I do, and so Faceless Manipulator could really help me kind of wrestle back the advantage when I don't have many legendaries out on the board and my opponent just starts throwing down Ysera, Ragnaros, all kinds of horribleness. 2 Fire Elemental, as I explained, and then we've taken a Sunwalker for late game taunt and also to help bait out any polymorphs, any hexes, any assassinates, that kind of thing, trying to waste their removal on this when I have 2 legendaries waiting to be played. So that's my Shaman, and then moving on finally to the Warlock. This is my most aggressive, most unreliable deck, but it's also the deck that I've played the most, so I know how it works. It relies very heavily on the early game. Those 1, 2 and 3 drops make up a vast quantity of the deck, but it still has the late game punch required. So let's take a look at this. So Immortal Coil, it's a really nice card early on, especially when you have it's fantastic for finishing off things. 1 damage, card draw. You can't knock that for only 1 mana. It's not too bad at all. Power Overwhelming. This is a really gimmicky card, especially when I'm not using any Void Terrors. But it's there as a finisher mainly. It can really surprise people, and it has the ability to get that late game kill without very much damage on the board. It's something that people don't really expect. If you think about it this way as a fit, if you think of, for example, Leroy Jenkins as a finisher, it's almost as good as Leroy Jenkins in terms of finishing capability. It's 4 damage on the board that you otherwise wouldn't have had, and if used as a finisher, then the fact that the minion dies at the end of the turn doesn't make a difference. And it can also be used to buff up small minions to kill any big scary creatures as well. Pair of Blood Imps, good reliable health for my minions, just to help them take that 1 extra hit. That's mainly what I'm going to be using it for. Flame Imp, probably the best 3-drop in the game. A 3/2 on turn 1 can be devastating. A single Voidwalker. This is just to try and get the early game advantage, just to try and just initially get that advantage. A 1-3 with Taunt rarely dies on the first turn, and usually it can soak up at least one hit from another minion and allow you to start getting creatures on the board early on. Demon Fire, 2 of them. I have quite a few small minions in the deck, but they can get terrifying if Demon Fire. So the Flame Imps become 5/4s, for example, and that can be done on turn 2, which is pretty horrible. If I have the coin, I can get them as a 5/6 by the end of turn 2 if I happen to have a Blood Imp as well. Shadowbolt, good reliable damage for not very much mana. Hellfire is good reliable board clear, it does 3 damage to everything, but I have a lot of things with 4 health in this deck, so it should be okay. 2 Siphon Souls, this is the Warlock's equivalent of Polymorph and Hex. It's guaranteed kill, and that's why it's in the deck. Then a single Dread Infernal to kill if, for example, Summon the Hounds for Hunters is played. That can be used to just send out, bang, they're all dead, and it's a 6/6 for 6 mana, it's good value. And I've decided to take Lord Jaraxxus as well, because if this deck has quite a lot of self-harm in it, and also there's not too much in the way of self-healing or large self-healing, and if I go down very low, Lord Jaraxxus could give me the health required to actually survive the game. Added to the fact that he can summon a 6/6 demon every turn with his hero power. If he survives for more than a turn or so, usually the Warlock wins. Moving on to the neutral cards, I've started out with a Knife Juggler just to work on the principle that I'm sending out a lot of minions, and more knives the better. Sunfury Protector, I've skipped over the card draw because obviously the Warlock's ability is draw a card, so those shouldn't be needed. Sunfury Protector allows me to get up some early taunt just to stop any extra damage coming in on the Warlock if I'm facing up against another rushdown deck. It just allows me to try and regain any advantage that I may have lost earlier on in the game. 2 Ethereal Farseers, as with the Shaman, which has very little in the way of self-healing. 6 health for 6 mana is actually not so shabby, so that could be really, really useful. Then I've taken a single Harvest Golem, again, pure value. Hellfire I've explained, Defender of Argus I've explained, same thing with the Shaman. It allows me to stop my opponents from rushing me down and allow me to focus on hitting them in the face. Same thing with Sentient Shieldmaster, it stops rushdown decks. This is almost a counter rushdown deck in a sense. Spellbreaker, that's another way that I can get rid of any big scary creatures that get buffed up. For example, a Lightwell or Gurubashi Berserker, anything like an Armani Berserker that gets out of hand, Frothing Berserker, all those kind of things, I can just silence them and then they don't become a problem anymore. Single Azure Drake, I don't need much in the way of card draw, but extra spell damage could be quite nice. Drain Life at 2 damage for 3 mana probably isn't worth it, but for 3 damage, that can be quite nice. It can kill a lot of 3-drops very, very comfortably. Added to that, Shadowbolt, 4 damage. It guarantees the kill on things like Stormwind Knights, Violet Teachers, Darkscale Healers. It kills most Twilight Drakes. It kills Sentient Shieldmaster. It kills Chillwind Yeti. 5 damage is the magic number. Where were we? We were about here. Darkscale Healer, again, more self-heal. I don't rate it much as a card personally, but I just felt that I'm going to be doing so much damage to myself, and I'm going to be taking a lot of damage, that it could be nice, and for only 1 more mana than a Yeti, it's quite nice to just have that extra bit of healing. Faceless Manipulator, same thing with the Shaman. I don't run that many legendaries, so it could be quite nice to steal one of my opponents, or at least copy it. Siphon Solar Token I've spoken about. Sunwalker, again, that's there to destroy any hexes, polymorphs, bait them out, and then I continue the theme of Lord Ragnaros, and then there's Lord Jaraxxus. So those are all my decks. Those are the 3 that hopefully I will win the tournament with, but I have no doubts that I'll probably be slaughtered in the first round by some dumb Murloc brushdown deck, probably. So I'll see you, hopefully, during the first match. which will be coming up soon, so enjoy. And obviously if I lose the first match, like I say, I'll be just doing some videos of ladder play, maybe upgrading my decks a bit, doing that kind of thing. You know, just playing a few games of Hearthstone. So I shall see you later. Goodbye for now.